I was paid $15 to do this. If you want something read, I'm offering my services. Check out the details below. Now we're reading a creepypasta. Ask not for whom the bell tolls. It was another early morning. The bell was chiming over the quiet London village. Gary knew this meant one thing. Another person had succumbed to the plague in the night, and Gary had to go out to retrieve it. He woke up and put on his... Oh, God, hold on. He woke up and put on his work clothes like usual, a set of coveralls, and a large pair of rubber gloves. Then he was out the door. He grabbed his cart and a shovel and began walking towards the town center, where he'd been informed of where the house was. Maybe he'll be lucky this time and find it on the way. At least he wouldn't have to deal with the mayor talking down to him some more. As he was on his way, he began to think of the other people he had to pick up. He had names for them. Bloaters were the ones who they don't realize had died for a while and were left in a closed room. They were some of the worst. Gary had to handle them with the most care because if they burst, the room would be contaminated, and the smell was something awful. Acres were the ones that oozed slightly, always had that black mucus substance around their mouths and were the hardest to clean up after. The plague had no mercy for everyone, and the acres always seemed to leave behind a dripping trail of infected bodily fluids. Gary hated them almost as bad as the bloaters. He was hoping it was just a passer, one of the ones who had the plague, but fortunately died peacefully when the fever was just too high and killed him. They were really the easiest to deal with. Grab it and carry it to a burial site. As he wheeled through the streets, thinking of what he'd surely come across, he began to wonder who it was. He walked up to the nearest cafe and asked if anyone knew who the bell was ringing for this time. No one looked up for him, or even seemed to notice he was there. Tourist, Gary muttered. Even with the plague in heavy effect and most roads blockaded in and out of the city, people with a strong, morbid curiosity still managed to get into the city to peek around. They were notorious for being foreigners. Gary continued along. He noticed his good friend walk by and tried to stop to ask what the bell was this time, but his friend hurried past, just going in the opposite direction. Must be busy. Always is, Gary muttered again. He grumped forward and finally made it to the town square. It was strangely cold the early summer morning. The usual crowd wasn't there either. There were usually few people milling about wanting to see who the dead chap was this time. Gary couldn't even find the mayor. It's odd, he is always there when the bell rang. As he looked around, he noticed a man in a black robe behind him. The man had a calm face, and had obviously noticed Gary. He walked towards him. "And mister, I don't think I've seen you around here before. But you know who this bell is for?" Gary asked. He was getting slightly agitated. The man nodded slightly and pointed back down the road. "Come," he stated. Gary followed the man all the way back down the streets he had just walked down. "You mean to tell me I don't walk all this way? Just footed me right down the opposite direction from my house?" "No." "So it's Lieutenant, and I just didn't notice him," Gary muttered. He opened the door and began to walk upstairs. "George! Where you at, George? You dead?" "Oh, damn, what am I asking if I dead? Can't have answer." Gary grumbled, getting back down the stairs. Halfway to George's flat, Gary stopped. His door was open and people were inside. He looked in, suspecting robbers, only to see the mayor and Gary's family sobbing near him. "What's this about? What's all this?" "I realized I turned Gary into a Scotsman. I got up just to get the damned body. You're crying about me room. What's this?" Gary tried to get inside, but a man in a black robe stood in the corner of the room. He looked at Gary and pointed to the bed. Him. Who's him? This my room. I'm standing right bloody here. Who's the damn The mayor had moved, and Gary noticed who was on the bed. Face down in a puddle of black mucus, Gary lay dead from the plague. Whoops! Gary never knew he died until he fucking found out himself! Now he's just a ghost! Ooh-hoo! That just fucking gives me chills. You try to fucking go on with your life, but you wind up seeing yourself out of body and dead on the floor. Scary sometimes.